My name is Alexandru, and for 7 nights I answered phone calls that told me exactly how much time I had left. I need to explain how it started, because the beginning matters. Everything that came after hinged on that first call, and I've spent every waking moment since trying to understand what I did to deserve this. Or maybe I didn't do anything at all. Maybe it was always going to be me. I work night shift at a call center, not one of those massive operations you see in movies with hundreds of people crammed into cubicles. This is smaller, maybe 30 workstations spread across a single floor in an office building on the outskirts of Bucharest. The company handles customer service for a handful of European telecommunications providers. Boring work, repetitive. But it pays well enough, and the night shift bonus makes it worthwhile. My shift runs from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., 5 nights a week. Monday through Friday. I've been doing this for almost 3 years now, long enough that the routine has become automatic. I arrive at 9:45, badge in through the security door, walk past the empty reception desk, take the elevator to the 3rd floor. The office is always quiet when I arrive. The evening shift is wrapping up, people logging out, grabbing their bags, heading home to their families. I prefer it when they're gone. By 10:15, it's just me and maybe 4 or 5 other night shift workers scattered across the floor. We don't talk much. There's Maria, who sits 3 rows away and spends most of her shift watching Netflix on her phone between calls. There's Bogdan, who takes his breaks outside and always smells like cigarettes when he comes back. There's Claudia, who I think might be studying for something because she always has textbooks spread across her desk. And then there's Radu, the night supervisor, who sits in the glass-walled office at the far end of the floor and mostly leaves us alone as long as we meet our call quotas. The work itself is simple. Customers call with problems. Billing issues mostly, sometimes technical questions about their internet service or mobile plans. I pull up their account, walk them through the steps, document the interaction in the system, and move on to the next call. 8 hours of this. The calls come in waves. Some nights are busy, some are dead. You never really know. I had been working there for 2 years and 8 months when the first call came. It was a Tuesday, October 17th. I remember because I had looked at the date on my computer screen right before the call came through. I was drinking coffee from a paper cup, the cheap kind from the machine in the break room that always tastes faintly of plastic. The office was particularly quiet that night. Claudia had called in sick, and Bogdan was on break, so it was just me and Maria on the floor. Radu was in his office with the door closed, probably doing paperwork or watching something on his laptop. The call volume had been low all night. I had maybe taken 15 calls in 4 hours. I was reading an article on my phone, something about a hiking trail in the mountains I wanted to try that weekend, when my headset beeped. I glanced at the screen. Incoming call. The number showed up as a standard Romanian mobile number, nothing unusual about it. And I tapped the answer button and straightened up in my chair, putting my phone down. Good evening, thank you for calling. My name is Alexandru. How can I help you today? There was silence on the other end. Not the kind of silence where you can hear background noise or breathing. Complete silence, dead air. I waited a few seconds, then repeated the greeting. Sometimes people don't realize the call has connected right away. Hello? Can you hear me? More silence. I was about to disconnect and log it as a dropped call when I heard the voice. It was male. Calm. Flat. No emotion at all. The kind of voice you might hear on an automated system, except it wasn't robotic. It was human, but somehow wrong. Too steady, too measured. You have 6 days left. That's all it said. 6 words. Then the line went dead. I sat there for a moment, staring at my screen. The call had already disconnected. The timer showed it had lasted 8 seconds. I frowned and checked the number again. It was a normal mobile number starting with 07, which is standard for Romania. I tried calling it back, but I got an automated message saying the number was not in service. I logged the call as a prank and moved on. Except I didn't really move on. The voice stuck with me. There was something off about it. The way it had said those words, so calm and final. You have 6 days left. Left until what? It could have been anything. Maybe someone playing a joke. Maybe a wrong number. Maybe some weird scam I hadn't encountered before. I didn't tell anyone about it. What would I say? Someone called and said something vague and creepy. It didn't seem worth mentioning. I finished my shift, unclocked out at 6 a.m. and drove home through the empty morning streets. I live alone in a small apartment in Sector 4, about 20 minutes from the office. One bedroom, a cramped kitchen, a bathroom that always smells faintly of mildew no matter how much I clean it. It's not much, but it's mine. I moved there after my breakup with Ioana 2 years ago. She kept the nicer apartment we had shared in Sector 1. I didn't fight her on it, I just wanted out. I got home around 6:30, exhausted in that particular way that comes from working all night. My body felt heavy, my eyes burned, but my mind was still buzzing. I made myself some toast, ate it standing in the kitchen, then collapsed into bed. I set my alarm for 2 p.m. That gives me enough time to sleep, wake up, eat something, and get ready for the next shift. I dreamed that night, although I don't usually remember my dreams. In this one, I was back at the office, sitting at my desk, and my phone kept ringing. Every time I answered it, there was no one there. Just that dead silence. And in the dream, I knew something was wrong. I kept trying to hang up, but the call wouldn't disconnect. The silence stretched on, and I could feel something on the other end, listening. I woke up at 2 p.m. covered in sweat. The dream faded quickly, the way they do, but it left me with an uneasy feeling that lingered while I showered and got dressed. I told myself it was nothing. Just a weird call. It happened sometimes. People called and said strange things, or didn't say anything at all. Part of the job. I wasn't going to let it get to me. But that night, Wednesday, when I arrived at work and settled into my routine, I found myself watching the clock. I didn't even realize I was doing it at first. But as the night wore on and the time approached 2:17 a.m., I felt my pulse quicken. I kept glancing at the phone, at the screen, waiting. At exactly 2:17 a.m., my headset beeped. I stared at the incoming call notification. Different number, another Romanian mobile. I hesitated for a moment, my finger hovering over the answer button, then pressed it. "Good evening, thank you for calling. My name is Alexandru. How can I help you today?" Silence. Then the voice, exact same tone, exact same flatness. "You have 5 days left." The line went dead. I pulled off my headset and stood up, my heart hammering. I looked around the office. Maria was at her desk, focused on her screen. Radu was in his office. Everything was normal, everything except the call. And I sat back down and immediately checked the number. I tried to call it back. Same automated message, number not in service. I pulled up the call log, looking for the previous night's call, the first one. It was there, logged as a prank call, but the number was different from tonight's. 2 different numbers. Same voice, same message, updated, 6 days, 5 days, a countdown. I spent the rest of my shift distracted, barely paying attention to the legitimate customer calls that came through. My mind kept circling back to those 2 calls. Who was doing this? How did they get through to my direct line? Our call system routes incoming calls through a queue. Customers don't dial individual employees. They dial the main number and get connected to whoever is available. But both of these calls had come through directly to me, bypassing the queue entirely. I thought about telling Radu, but what would I say? Someone is calling me and counting down. It sounded absurd. He'd probably think I was stressed or paranoid. And besides, what could he do about it? Tell me to ignore prank calls. I already knew that. When my shift ended, I didn't go straight home. I stopped at a non-stop cafe near my apartment and sat there for an hour, drinking coffee I didn't need, trying to make sense of it. The morning sun was fully up by the time I finally headed back to my apartment. I felt wired, exhausted, but unable to sleep. I did sleep eventually, though fitfully. When I woke up in the early afternoon, I checked my phone immediately. No missed calls, no messages, nothing unusual. I tried to convince myself that the calls would stop. Maybe it was just someone messing with me. Maybe they'd gotten bored already. But I knew, somewhere deep in my gut, that they wouldn't stop. Thursday night. I arrived at work with a knot of anxiety in my stomach. The office felt different somehow, though nothing had actually changed. Same fluorescent lights, same rows of desks, Same hum of computers and air conditioning. I logged in, put on my headset, and tried to focus on work. The night crawled by. Every minute felt longer than the last. I kept watching the clock in the bottom corner of my screen. 1 a.m., 1:30 a.m., 2 a.m. At 2:17 a.m., the call came. Different number, same voice. You have 4 days left. I tried to speak this time, tried to ask who they were, what they wanted, but the line was already dead before I could get a word out. 8 seconds, same as before, just long enough to deliver the message. I immediately pulled up the caller information in our system. Our software automatically logs every incoming number and attempts to match it with a customer account. Usually it's for tracking purposes, quality assurance, that sort of thing. The number showed up in our system. It was registered to a customer account. I clicked on it and the profile loaded. Name, Dumitru Vasile. Address, some street in Sector 3. Account status, inactive. I scrolled down, looking for more information. There was a note in the account, dated 3 years ago. Account closed due to death of account holder. My blood went cold. I read it again, closed due to death. I clicked on the note to expand it. There was a scan of a death certificate attached. Dumitru Vasile, deceased March 2020. The account had been closed by a family member, and the call had come from a dead man's phone. I sat there, staring at the screen, my mind trying to process what I was seeing. It had to be a coincidence. Someone must have gotten the old number reassigned. That happens sometimes. Phone numbers get recycled after a certain period, but the system still showed the account as inactive, tied to a deceased person. I checked the previous 2 numbers from the earlier calls. The first one, from Tuesday night, belonged to a woman named Elena Popescu. Account closed. Deceased January 2019. The second one, from Wednesday night, belonged to a man named Ion Cristescu. Account closed. Deceased August 2021. All 3 numbers, all registered to dead people. I felt the air get colder around me, or maybe that was just my imagination. I looked around the office. Maria was still at her desk. Radu was in his office. Everything normal, but nothing felt normal anymore. I thought about going to Radu right then, showing him what I had found. But what was I really showing him? That prank calls were coming from recycled phone numbers that used to belong to deceased customers. He'd probably have some logical explanation. Hell, there probably was a logical explanation. I just couldn't think of it right then. I finished my shift in a daze. When I got home, I didn't sleep. I sat on my couch with my laptop and started searching. I looked up the names from the accounts. Elena Popescu. There were obituaries online. She had died in a car accident. Ion Cristescu, heart attack. Dumitru Vasile. I couldn't find much about him, but the death certificate in our system was real. All of them dead, all of them years ago. And someone was using their phone numbers to call me. I tried to think of explanations. Someone hacking the system. Someone spoofing numbers. But why? Why target me specifically? And why the countdown? 4 days left. Left until what? I didn't want to think about the obvious answer. Friday night. I almost called in sick. I sat in my car in the parking lot for 10 minutes before my shift, staring at the office building, debating whether to go in. But I needed this job. I needed the money. And part of me, a stubborn part, refused to let some creepy prank calls drive me away. I went in. I logged in. I worked. The night was busy, which helped distract me. Call after call, customer after customer. Problem solved, tickets closed, time passing. But as 2:17 a.m. approached, my hands started shaking. I could barely type. I kept making mistakes. I having to apologize to customers and ask them to repeat information. 2:17 a.m. The call came. You have 3 days left. This time I was ready. The moment I heard the voice, I started recording the call using my phone. I held it up to my headset speaker. The voice said its message, and I captured it. The line went dead, but I had it. Proof. Evidence that this was really happening. I played it back immediately. The recording was clear. My voice saying hello. Then, silence. Just silence. The other voice wasn't there. I played it again, volume turned all the way up. Nothing, just my voice and dead air. But I had heard it. I knew I had heard it. I checked the number. Another dead person. This time, a woman named Maria Ionescu. Deceased November 2018. I pulled up the call logs from the system, the official records that track every call in and out. I searched for the timestamp 2:17 a.m. The record was there, showing an incoming call, 8 seconds duration. But the audio file, which should have captured the conversation for quality assurance purposes, was corrupted. I tried to open it 3 times. Each time I got an error message. File corrupted or missing. I checked the logs for the previous 3 calls, all of them, all corrupted. This wasn't possible. Our system was redundant. We had backups of backups. Files didn't just corrupt randomly, especially not multiple files from different nights. I sat there, breathing hard, feeling like the walls were closing in. I needed to tell someone. I needed someone else to confirm that this was happening, that I wasn't losing my mind. I got up and walked over to Maria's desk. She looked up, pulling out one earbud. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "did you hear anything weird on the phone lines tonight? Like around 2:17? She frowned. "Weird how?" "I don't know, just anything unusual?" She shook her head. "No. Why?" "I've been getting these strange calls, always at the same time. I just wondered if anyone else was experiencing it." "Strange how?" I hesitated. How did I explain this without sounding insane? Someone keeps calling and saying cryptic stuff, then hanging up. Maria shrugged. "Probably just prank calls. We get those sometimes. Just hang up on them." "Yeah," I said. "Yeah, you're right, thanks." I went back to my desk. She hadn't heard anything. Of course she hadn't. The calls were for me. Only me. I made it through the rest of the shift on autopilot. Saturday morning, I drove home and didn't bother trying to sleep. I was too wired, too afraid of what might happen if I closed my eyes. Instead, I started researching. I searched for information about cursed phone calls, about death countdowns, about anything that might explain what was happening to me. I found stories, urban legends, creepypastas. Nothing real. Nothing that helped. By late afternoon, exhaustion finally overtook me. I passed out on my couch and slept until my alarm went off at 9 p.m. Saturday night. I had to go back. The weekend shift was even quieter than usual. Just me, Bogdan, and Radu. Maria had the weekend off. Claudia didn't work weekends. The office felt emptier, more isolated. Every sound seemed louder, the hum of the computers, the buzz of the lights, the distant traffic outside. I worked through the night in a state of numb dread. Oh, I didn't want the call to come. I wanted this to stop. But at the same time, part of me needed it to come, needed to confirm that this was real, that I hadn't imagined the previous calls. 2:17 a.m. The call came. "You have 2 days left." Different number. Another corpse. This time, the name in the system was Gheorghe Radu. I actually laughed when I saw it, a sharp, slightly hysterical sound. Same last name as my supervisor. I looked over at Radu's office. He was at his desk, head down, probably filling out reports. Gheorghe Radu, deceased April 2019. No relation to my supervisor, just another dead person. Another number that shouldn't be in use. 2 days left. 48 hours. I tried to think. 2 days until what? Until Sunday night, Monday morning. What happened when the countdown reached 0? Would I die? Or was this some kind of death omen? Or was it something else? I thought about running, just leaving, not coming back to work, getting in my car and driving somewhere far away. But where would I go? And would it even matter? If this was really about me, if I was really being targeted by something, would distance make any difference? I had no answers, just fear growing larger with each passing hour. Sunday, my last scheduled night of the work week. After this, I'd have 2 days off. But 2 days off didn't matter if I only had 2 days left. I thought about calling my mother, but we hadn't spoken in months. Not since an argument over Christmas plans last year. I thought about calling Ioana, my ex, but that seemed even worse. What would I say? "Hey, remember me?" I think I'm being haunted by phone calls from dead people. She'd think I'd lost it. Maybe I had lost it. Maybe this was all in my head. Some kind of breakdown brought on by too many years of night shifts and isolation. Maybe I was the one who was crazy, not the situation. But the numbers in the system were real. The accounts were real. The death certificates were real. Sunday night. I arrived at work early, 9:30 instead of 9:45. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to face it head on. Maybe I was just too anxious to sit at home anymore. Radu was already there, which was unusual. He normally came in right at 10. He looked up when I walked in. "Alexandru, you're early." "Couldn't sleep," I said. He nodded, his expression neutral. "You feeling okay? You've seemed a bit off this week." "I'm fine," I lied, "just tired." "Let me know if you need anything," he said, then went back to his computer. And I logged in and sat there, staring at my screen. The office felt different tonight. The air felt thicker. Or maybe that was just my imagination, my mind playing tricks on me because I was terrified of what was coming. The night dragged on. Fewer calls than usual, long stretches of silence between each one. I watched the clock obsessively. 11 p.m., midnight, 1 a.m. At 2 a.m., I got up and walked to the break room. I needed coffee, even though I was already jittery with anxiety. The break room was small, just a table, some chairs, and the coffee machine. I made myself a cup and stood there, staring at nothing, trying to calm my breathing. When I came back to my desk, it was 2:10 a.m. 7 minutes, I sat down, put on my headset, waited. 2:17 a.m. The call came, but this time something was different. The number on my screen wasn't a mobile number, and it was an internal extension, extension 47. That was the phone on the empty desk 2 rows behind me. No one sat there. It had been vacant for weeks, ever since someone quit, and they never hired a replacement. I turned around slowly, looking at the desk. The phone there sat silent, dark, but my headset was ringing. I answered it. Silence, then the voice. "You have 1 day left." The line went dead. I stood up, pulled off my headset, and walked over to the empty desk. The phone sat there, receiver in its cradle. I picked it up. Dial tone. Normal. I hung it up and went back to my desk. I pulled up the call log. The call was there. 8 seconds. Incoming from extension 47. But how? How could an internal extension call me? Internal extensions didn't work that way. They were for inter-office communication, and you had to manually dial them. A phone sitting unused at an empty desk couldn't just call someone, unless someone had been sitting there, unless someone had dialed my extension at exactly 2:17 a.m. I looked around the office. Radu was in his office. Bogdan was at his desk, headset on, probably on a call. No one else was on the floor. No one had been at that empty desk. I walked over to Radu's office and knocked on the glass door. He looked up and waved me in. "What's up?" he asked. "Did you see anyone at the empty desk?" "Extension 47. He frowned. "When?" "Just now, a few minutes ago." He shook his head. "No, why?" "I got a call from that extension. I thought maybe someone was there." "A call from 47? He looked confused. "That doesn't make sense. No one uses that desk." "I know, but it's in the log. I got a call from it at 2:17. He turned to his computer and pulled up the system logs. He scrolled through them, then shook his head. "I don't see any call from extension 47 tonight." "What? It's right there. I got the call." "Alexandru," he looked at me with something like concern. "There's no record of it. Are you sure you didn't imagine it?" "I didn't imagine it." He sighed. "Look, you've been stressed this week. I can tell. Maybe you should take a break. Go home early. Get some rest. I'm not making this up. I didn't say you were, but stress can do strange things. Make us see or hear things that aren't there. There's no shame in taking a night off." I wanted to argue, to insist, but what was the point? He didn't see the call in the logs, just like Maria hadn't heard anything, just like my recording hadn't captured the voice. "Fine," I said. "Maybe you're right." I went back to my desk, logged out, and left. It was only 2:30 a.m. I'd only worked half a shift, but I couldn't stay there anymore. Not that night. I drove home through empty streets, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. 1 day left, 24 hours. Less than that now, 23 hours and some minutes. When I got home, I didn't go to bed. I sat at my kitchen table with a pen and paper and started writing everything down. Every call, every number, every detail. I needed to document this. I needed proof, even if it was just for myself. The first call, Tuesday, October 17th, 2:17 a.m., 6 days left. The second call, Wednesday, October 18th, 2:17 a.m., 5 days left. The third call, Thursday, October 19th, 2:17 a.m., 4 days left. The fourth call, Friday, October 20th, 2:17 a.m., 3 days left. The fifth call, Saturday, October 21st, 2:17 a.m., 2 days left. The sixth call, Sunday, October 22nd, 2:17 a.m., 1 day left. Today was Monday, October 23rd. If the pattern held, I'd get the final call tonight at 2:17 a.m. And then what? Would it say, "You have 0 days left"? Or would it say something else? Would something happen to me? I realized I was assuming I'd be at work when the call came. But I wasn't scheduled to work Monday. My days off were Monday and Tuesday. The call wouldn't come to my work phone because I wouldn't be there. Unless it came to my personal phone. I looked at my phone sitting on the table. It was just after 3 a.m. About 23 hours until 2:17 a.m. Tuesday. No, wait, the countdown said 1 day left. If it was precise, that meant 24 hours from the time of the last call, which would put the next call at 2:17 a.m. tonight, Monday night. Less than 24 hours from now, and I wouldn't be at work. I should have felt relieved. If I wasn't at work, maybe the call wouldn't come. Maybe I'd broken the pattern by leaving early. But somehow I didn't think it would be that simple. I tried to sleep, but couldn't. I laid in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. Around noon I gave up and got up. I made food I didn't eat. I turned on the TV and didn't watch it. I paced around my apartment, checking my phone every few minutes, even though no one was calling. The day passed with agonizing slowness. Afternoon became evening. Evening became night. I watched the sun set through my window, watched the sky turn from orange to purple to black. At 11 p.m., I was sitting on my couch, phone in my hand. 4 hours to go. 3.5. 3, I thought about going somewhere public. A bar, maybe, or an all-night restaurant, somewhere with people around. But what good would that do? If something was going to happen, would witnesses help? At 1 a.m., I couldn't take sitting in my apartment anymore. I grabbed my keys and left. I drove around the city aimlessly, through neighborhoods I barely knew, past closed shops and empty parks. The streets were mostly deserted, a few taxis, a few people stumbling home from late nights out. Otherwise nothing. At 2 a.m., I found myself parked near the office building where I worked. I hadn't consciously driven there. I just ended up there, like some part of me knew that's where I needed to be. I sat in my car, staring up at the third-floor windows. Some of the lights were on. People were working the night shift. Bogdan, maybe. Claudia, maybe even Maria. My replacement, whoever Radu had gotten to cover my unfinished shift. 2:10 a.m. I checked my phone. Battery full, signal strong, everything normal. 2:15 a.m. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. 2:17 a.m. Nothing happened. I sat there, waiting. 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes, no call. Had I been wrong? Had it stopped? Had leaving work early somehow broken the curse, if that's what it was? Then my phone lit up. Unknown number. Not a Romanian number. Not any number format I recognized. Just a string of digits that didn't make sense. I stared at it, my thumb hovering over the answer button. The phone kept ringing. I answered it. Hello? Silence. That familiar dead silence. Then the voice. But this time it was different. Not calm and flat like before. This time, there was something underneath it. Anticipation maybe, or satisfaction. You have 12 hours left. The line went dead. I sat there, the phone still pressed to my ear, trying to process what I'd just heard. 12 hours. Not 0 days. Not, your time is up. 12 hours. The countdown had changed. Instead of days, now it was hours. Specific, precise hours. 12 hours from now would be 2:17 p.m. Monday afternoon. I drove home in a daze. When I got there, I noticed something strange. My apartment building looked the same, but something felt off. I couldn't put my finger on it at first. Then I realized the light in the stairwell was out. It had been working when I left. Now it was dark. I climbed the stairs in darkness, feeling my way along the wall. When I reached my floor, the hallway light was also out. Just my floor. The floor above and below still had working lights. I unlocked my door and went inside. Everything was as I'd left it. But the air felt different. Colder maybe, or just more oppressive. I turned on every light in the apartment and sat on my couch, waiting for dawn. At 6 a.m., when the sun started to rise, I felt a small measure of relief. Daylight made everything seem less threatening, less real. I made coffee and tried to think logically about what was happening. Someone was targeting me, that much was clear. They had access to the company's phone system, enough access to manipulate call logs and corrupt audio files. They knew my schedule, knew when I'd be at work. They were using psychological warfare, the countdown, the dead people's phone numbers, all designed to terrify me. But who? And why? And I couldn't think of anyone who hated me enough to do this. I didn't have enemies. I barely had friends. I kept to myself, did my job, went home. I hadn't wronged anyone that I could remember. No bitter ex-partners, no workplace rivals, no one with a grudge. Unless it was random. Unless I'd just been unlucky. Chosen at random by someone who got their kicks from tormenting strangers. But the precision of it, the detail, suggested this was personal. This was planned. At 9 a.m., I called Radu. He sounded groggy when he answered. Alexandru, what's going on? I need to ask you something. Has anyone been asking about me? At work, I mean? Anyone unusual? Asking about you? What do you mean? I don't know. Just anyone showing interest in me, wanting to know my schedule or personal information. There was a pause. No. Why would someone be asking about you? I think someone is harassing me. What kind of harassment? Phone calls, threatening phone calls. Another pause. Alexandru, are you okay? You left in the middle of your shift last night. You seemed really stressed. Maybe you should see someone, talk to a professional. I'm not crazy. I didn't say you were, but I know what stress can do. This isn't stress. Someone is calling me. Someone is counting down. They've been doing it for a week now. Counting down to what? I don't know. That's what I'm trying to figure out. He sighed. Listen, take a few days off. I'll adjust the schedule. Get some rest. If you're really concerned about harassment, go to the police. The police won't help. There's no evidence. Then I don't know what to tell you. But you can't come to work like this. You're not in a good state. He was suspending me, not in those words, but that's what it amounted to. Fine, I said, and hung up. I spent the rest of the morning trying to distract myself. I cleaned my apartment, washed dishes, did laundry. Physical tasks that kept my hands busy but did nothing to quiet my mind. At noon, I made lunch but couldn't eat it. 2 hours and 17 minutes left. I turned on the TV and flipped through channels without watching anything. My phone sat on the coffee table in front of me. I kept staring at it, waiting for it to ring. At 1 p.m., I started pacing. 1 hour and 17 minutes. At 2 p.m., I sat back down on the couch, phone in hand. 17 minutes. I watched the clock on my phone. The minutes ticked by with excruciating slowness. 2:10 p.m., 2:15 p.m., 2:17 p.m. The phone rang, unknown number again, the same string of nonsensical digits. I answered immediately. Who are you? Silence. What do you want from me? The voice, when it came, was as calm and emotionless as ever. You have 6 hours left. 6 hours until what? What happens then? But the line was already dead. I tried to call back. Just ringing, no answer. I tried again, same thing, 6 hours. That would be 8:17 p.m. I grabbed my laptop and pulled up the company's internal system. I still had access, even though I wasn't supposed to be working. I logged in and started digging through records, looking for anything unusual. Personnel files, call logs, system access records. I don't know what I was looking for. Proof of tampering, maybe. Evidence that someone was manipulating the system. Anything that would make sense of this. But everything looked normal. Call volumes were standard, no unusual access patterns, no flags or alerts. I searched for the phone numbers from the previous calls, the dead people's numbers. They were all there in the system, exactly as I remembered. Inactive accounts, deceased customers. Then I had a thought. I searched for my own name in the system. Alexandru Popescu. Employee ID 7743. Status, active, position, customer service representative. Shift, night. Start date, January 2022. All correct, all normal. Except there was a note in my file that hadn't been there before. I would have noticed it. I checked my file regularly for schedule changes and performance reviews. The note was dated today, Monday, October 23rd, just a few hours ago. It read, "Employee flagged for irregular behavior. I recommended psych evaluation. Radu must have added it after our phone call this morning. Standard procedure, probably, for someone showing signs of mental instability. But something about seeing it there, in writing, in my official file, made my stomach drop. I clicked on the note to see if there were more details. The note expanded, and below the main text, there was another line. A line I hadn't seen before. Transfer request pending. Role, caller, status, under review. Transfer request? I hadn't requested a transfer. And what did role caller even mean? We didn't have a position called caller. We were all customer service representatives. We answered calls, we didn't make them. I tried clicking on the line to get more information, but the link was dead. It just took me to an error page. I sat there, staring at the screen, trying to make sense of it. Then I heard a sound behind me. My apartment has an open floor plan, kitchen, living room, all one space. The bedroom and bathroom are separated by a short hallway. The sound had come from the hallway. I turned slowly. The hallway was dark. I'd turned on all the lights earlier, but somehow the hallway light was off now. "Hello?" I called out. No answer. I stood up, setting my laptop aside, and walked toward the hallway. My heart was pounding. Every instinct told me not to go down there, but I had to know if someone was in my apartment. I reached the hallway and fumbled for the light switch. I flicked it on. Nothing happened. The bulb must have burned out. I pulled out my phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating the hallway. Empty. Both doors, bedroom and bathroom, were closed, exactly as I'd left them. I walked down the hall and opened the bedroom door. Empty. Nothing disturbed. I checked the bathroom, also empty. I must have imagined the sound, or maybe it was something from a neighboring apartment. The walls were thin. I went back to the living room and checked the time, 3:45 p.m. 4 hours and 32 minutes until 8:17 p.m. I decided I couldn't stay in my apartment. I needed to be somewhere public, somewhere with people. I grabbed my keys and wallet and headed for the door. But when I tried to turn the handle, it wouldn't move. I tried again, pulling harder. The door was locked, but I hadn't locked it. I never locked it from the inside with the deadbolt, just the regular lock, which could be opened from the inside without a key. I checked the deadbolt. It was engaged. I tried to turn it. It wouldn't budge. I fumbled with my keys, tried the key in the deadbolt. It didn't fit. Wrong key, or the lock had been changed. My pulse was racing now. I went to the window. I lived on the 4th floor, too high to jump. But I could at least look outside, see if anyone was out there. I pulled back the curtain. The street below was busy with afternoon traffic. People walking, cars passing, normal life happening right outside my window. I banged on the glass, trying to get someone's attention, but no one looked up, no one noticed. I pulled out my phone and called 112, the emergency number. A dispatcher answered. 112, what's your emergency? I'm trapped in my apartment. The door won't open. Are you injured? No, but I can't get out. Something's wrong with the lock. What's your address? I gave it to her. Okay, sir, stay calm. And I'm sending someone to check on you. Can you try the door again? I went back to the door and tried it. This time it opened easily. The deadbolt wasn't engaged. The regular lock turned smoothly. I stood there, staring at the open door, phone still pressed to my ear. "Sir, are you there?" "Yeah, it's open now, it's working." "So you're able to exit the apartment?" "Yes." "Do you still need assistance?" Did I? I didn't know anymore. Maybe the lock had just been stuck. Maybe I'd panicked and not tried hard enough. "No," I said. "I'm sorry, false alarm." "Are you sure you're okay, sir?" "Yes." "Thank you." I hung up and stepped out into the hallway. The lights were working now. Everything seemed normal. I took the stairs down and exited the building. The afternoon sun was bright, almost blinding after being inside. I walked without any destination in mind, just moving, needing to be away from my apartment. I ended up at a cafe a few blocks away. I ordered coffee and sat at a table by the window, watching people pass by outside. Normal people doing normal things. Going to work, shopping, living their lives. I envied them. I checked my phone. 5:30 p.m. 2 hours and 47 minutes. The cafe was warm and well lit. There were about a dozen other people there. Students studying, couples talking, someone working on a laptop. I felt safer here. Whatever was happening to me, it couldn't happen in a crowded cafe. Could it? I nursed my coffee and tried to think. 6 hours. Then what? What happened when the countdown reached 0? I thought about the note in my employee file. Transfer request pending. Roll caller. What if the countdown wasn't about my death? What if it was about something else? Some kind of change, some kind of transformation. But that was crazy. People didn't transform. This was real life, not a horror movie. Except everything that had been happening felt like a horror movie. The phone calls, the dead people's numbers, the corrupted files, the doors that locked themselves. I pulled out my phone and searched for caller curse and phone call countdown and every other combination of words I could think of. I found stories, as I had before, urban legends about cursed phone numbers, about chains of calls that led to death. None of it was real. None of it was documented. Just stories, but stories had to come from somewhere, didn't they? At 7 p.m, the cafe started to empty out. The students packed up their books. The couples left. Soon it was just me and the barista, a young woman who kept glancing at me like she wanted to close up early. I checked my phone. 1 hour and 17 minutes. I couldn't stay there. The barista was going to kick me out soon anyway. I paid for my coffee and left. Outside, the sky was dark. The streetlights had come on. I walked slowly, trying to figure out where to go. I didn't want to be alone when the call came. But I also didn't want to be around people I knew. I didn't want to put anyone else at risk. Risk of what? I still didn't know. At 8 p.m, I found myself near the office building again, like my car had driven there of its own accord. I parked across the street and stared up at the third-floor windows. The lights were on, people were working, 17 minutes. I stayed in my car, engine off. I hands gripping the steering wheel. At 8:17 p.m, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered it. "Hello?" Silence, then the voice. "You have 3 hours left." The pattern had changed again, from 12 hours to 6 hours to 3 hours. The countdown was accelerating. 3 hours from now would be 11:17 p.m. "Please," I said, "tell me what you want. Tell me what this is about." But the line was dead. I sat there in the darkness of my car, feeling tears of frustration prick at my eyes. I was exhausted, terrified, and I still had no idea what was happening or how to stop it. 3 hours. I started the car and drove. Not home, not anywhere specific. Just drove through the city, watching the buildings and streets pass by. At some point, I realized I was driving toward my mother's house. I hadn't been there in almost a year. We'd had that fight, and neither of us had been willing to apologize first. But maybe she'd help me now, maybe I could explain what was happening, and she'd know what to do. But when I got close to her neighborhood, I couldn't bring myself to turn down her street. What would I say? What could she do? She'd probably react like Radu had, think I was having a breakdown, try to get me to see a doctor. I drove past her street and kept going. At 10 p.m, I was back near my apartment. 1 hour and 17 minutes. I parked on the street and sat there, watching my building. The lights in my apartment were on. I'd left them on when I left. But as I watched, one of them went out, then another, until my apartment was dark. Maybe the power had gone out, but the other apartments still had lights, just mine was dark. I got out of the car and walked to the building entrance. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step an effort. When I reached my floor, the hallway was dark again, just like earlier. I used my phone flashlight to navigate to my door. I unlocked it and stepped inside. The apartment was dark. I tried the light switches. Nothing. The power was definitely out, but only in my apartment. I stood in the darkness, phone in hand, and waited. 11:17 p.m. The phone rang. I answered. Hello? Silence. Then the voice. And this time I could hear something else in it. Not emotion exactly, but presence. Like the voice was closer than before, like it was in the room with me. You have 1 hour left. 1 hour until what? I demanded. What happens in 1 hour? But I was talking to dead air. 1 hour. That would be 12:17 a.m., just after midnight. The start of a new day. Tuesday, October 24th. I couldn't stay in the dark apartment. I grabbed my laptop and charger and left, taking the stairs 2 at a time. I got in my car and drove to the only place I could think of. The office. I arrived at 11:30 p.m. The building was locked, but I had my badge. I swiped it at the security door and it beeped green. I went inside and took the elevator to the 3rd floor. The office was quiet. Only 2 people were there, Claudia and someone I didn't recognize. They both glanced at me as I walked to my desk. Alexandru. Claudia looked surprised. I thought you had days off. I forgot something, I mumbled, and sat down at my desk. I logged into my computer and put on my headset. If the call was going to come, it would come here, at my work phone. That's where it had started. That's where it would end. I pulled up my employee file again. The note was still there. Transfer request pending. Role, caller, status, under review. I clicked on every link in my profile, looking for more information. Most of them worked normally, taking me to schedule pages or performance reviews. But one link, labeled Assignment Details, gave me an error. I tried it again. Same error. I opened the page source and looked at the code. The link was pointing to an internal server, but the address was wrong. It had an extra subdirectory that shouldn't be there. I corrected the address manually and tried again. This time, a page loaded. It was a simple form. At the top, it said Call Assignment System. Below that, there were fields: Employee ID, name, current role, requested role, status. My information was filled in. Say Employee ID 7743. Name, Alexandru Popescu. Current role, Customer Service Representative requested role. Caller status, pending approval. Date, October 24th, 2023, 12:17 a.m. I read it 3 times, trying to understand. Approval date. Tonight, in less than 30 minutes. What did it mean? What was a caller? I scrolled down. Below the form, there was a list of other employees. Names I didn't recognize. All of them had the same requested role, caller, and all of them had approval dates in the past. Some from months ago, some from years ago. I clicked on one of the names at random. A woman named Elena Popescu. A profile loaded. It looked like a standard employee profile, but the information was strange. Status, active role, caller shift, continuous call. Volume, 147. I went back and clicked on another name, Ion Cristescu. On status, active role, caller shift, continuous call. Volume, 293. I clicked on a third name, Dumitru Vasile. Status, active role, caller shift, continuous call volume, 89. These were the names from the phone calls, the dead people. They were listed as active employees with a role called caller. And in less than 30 minutes, I'd be approved for the same role. I heard footsteps behind me and spun around. Radu was standing there, looking down at me with an expression I couldn't read. Alexandru, what are you doing here? I needed to check something. You're supposed to be on leave. I know, I'm sorry, I needed to look at my file. He glanced at my screen. What are you looking at? Do you know what a caller is? His expression didn't change. No, Why? It's listed in the system as a role. Look. I turned the monitor toward him, showing the call assignment system page. He looked at it for a long moment, then shook his head. I've never seen this before. It says I'm being transferred to this role, tonight, in about 20 minutes. He frowned. That doesn't make sense. I didn't approve any transfer. Then who did? He didn't answer. He leaned past me and took control of the mouse, clicking through the page. He tried to access some of the other profiles, but they wouldn't load for him. Access denied. This might be some kind of system glitch, he said finally. Or maybe someone hacked the database. You should log out and go home. I can't go home. Why not? Because something's going to happen at 12:17. I don't know what, but something's going to happen and I need to be here when it does. He studied me for a moment. Alexandru, I'm worried about you. You're not making sense. I know how it sounds. But please, just let me stay until 12:17. After that, if nothing happens, I'll leave. I promise. He hesitated, then nodded slowly. Fine. But after that, you're going home. And tomorrow we're setting up a meeting with HR. Okay, thank you. He walked back to his office, glancing back at me once before closing the door. I turned back to my computer. The page was still there. Approval date, 12:17 a.m. I checked the time, 11:55 p.m. 22 minutes. I sat there, hands shaking, waiting. The office was silent except for the hum of computers and the occasional cough from Claudia's direction. At midnight, my phone buzzed. Not a call, a notification. I looked at it. It was an email from the company's automated system. Its subject, role transfer notification. I opened it. Dear Alexandru Popescu, your role transfer has been approved. Effective immediately, your position has been changed from customer service representative to caller. Please report to your new assignment. Congratulations on your new role. I read it twice, then I looked at the time. 12 a.m. The approval wasn't at 12:17. It was now. But the call hadn't come yet. I stared at my phone, at the headset on my desk, waiting. The minutes ticked by. 12:05, 12:10, 12:15. At 12:17 a.m., nothing happened. No call, no voice, nothing. I sat there, confused. Had I been wrong? Had the countdown meant something else? Then my computer screen flickered. The call assignment system page was still open. As I watched, the status next to my name changed. Status. Approved, and then new text appeared below it. First assignment loading. Please wait. A progress bar appeared on the screen, filling slowly. When it reached 100%, a new page loaded. It was a call interface, like the one I used for customer service calls. But this was different. Instead of incoming calls, there was a single button labeled Initiate Call. Below that, there was a name and phone number. The name was Mihai Ionescu. The phone number was a standard Romanian mobile number. Below that, there was a script, a single line of text I was supposed to read. You have 6 days left. I stared at the screen, my blood turning to ice. This was it. This was what it meant to be a caller. I was supposed to make the calls now. I was supposed to be the voice on the other end. I pushed back from my desk, standing up so fast I knocked my chair over. Claudia looked over. Everything okay? I didn't answer. I grabbed my phone and my keys and ran for the door. I took the stairs instead of the elevator, my footsteps echoing in the stairwell. When I reached the ground floor, I burst through the security door and into the parking lot. I got in my car and drove, away from the office, away from my apartment, just away. But even as I drove, I knew it didn't matter. You can't run from this. You can't escape it. I pulled over on a random street and sat there, engine running, trying to catch my breath. My phone was on the passenger seat. As I watched, the screen lit up. Not a call, an app notification, but I didn't recognize the app. The icon was black with a white phone symbol. I had never installed it. I picked up the phone. The app was called Caller. I tapped on it. It opened to the same interface I'd seen on my computer. The name, the number, the script. Initiate call button at the bottom. I closed the app and tried to delete it, but it wouldn't let me. The delete option was grayed out. I tried turning off the phone. The screen went dark, but then immediately turned back on. The caller app was open again. First assignment due. Please complete your call. The words appeared at the top of the screen. I tried turning off the phone again. Same thing. It wouldn't stay off. I threw the phone onto the passenger seat and gripped the steering wheel, trying to think. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening. But it was. I had been changed into something else. The countdown hadn't been to my death. It had been to my transformation. From someone who receives calls to someone who makes them. And the phone buzzed again. I looked at it. First assignment due. Please complete your call. Below that, a new line had appeared. Failure to complete assignment will result in escalation. Escalation to what? I didn't want to know. I sat there for a long time, maybe an hour, maybe more, trying to figure out what to do. But there was nothing I could do. No one I could call for help. No way to fight this. Finally, with shaking hands, I picked up the phone. The caller app was still open. The name, the number, the script, Mihai Ionescu. I wondered who he was, what he'd done to deserve this, or if, like me, he'd done nothing at all. My finger hovered over the initiate call button. I thought about refusing, about throwing the phone away and walking away from all of this. But I knew somehow that wouldn't work. This thing, whatever it was, I wouldn't let me go. It would escalate, as the message had said, and escalation would be worse. I pressed the button. The call connected immediately. 1 ring, 2 rings, 3 rings. Someone answered. Hello? It was a man's voice. He sounded young, tired maybe, annoyed at getting a call so late at night. I opened my mouth to speak. The script was there on the screen. You have 6 days left. But I couldn't say it. I couldn't do that to someone else. I couldn't put someone else through what I'd been through. Hello? The man said again. Who is this? I hung up. Immediately, the phone screen changed. Assignment incomplete. Warning issued. Next failure will result in escalation. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. A new assignment appeared. Different name, different number, same script. Han, please complete your call. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I pressed the button again. The call connected. A woman answered this time. Hello? I couldn't do it. I hung up again. Assignment incomplete. Final warning. Complete next assignment or face escalation. Third assignment. Another name, another number. I pressed the button. A man answered. Older by the sound of his voice. Yes? I closed my eyes. You have 6 days left, I whispered. I hung up immediately, before he could respond. The phone screen changed. Assignment complete. Next assignment in 24 hours. I sat there, feeling like I was going to be sick. I had done it. I had made the call. I had passed the curse on to someone else, and tomorrow night, at 2:17 a.m., I'd have to do it again. I drove home in a daze. The sun was starting to rise by the time I got there. I climbed the stairs to my apartment and went inside. Everything looked normal. The lights worked. The door opened and closed normally, but nothing felt normal. Nothing would ever feel normal again. I sat on my couch and stared at nothing, my phone on the coffee table in front of me. At some point, exhaustion overtook me, and I slept. I dreamed I was back at the office, sitting at my desk. But the office was different. The lights were dim, and the desks stretched on forever in all directions. And at every desk, someone was sitting, headset on, making calls. Calling and calling and calling forever. I woke up in the afternoon to my phone buzzing. I picked it up, heart racing, expecting another assignment, but it was just a text from Radu. HR wants to meet with you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Don't be late. I didn't respond. I spent the rest of the day in my apartment, unable to eat, unable to focus on anything. I kept checking the caller app. The next assignment would appear at 2:17 a.m., less than 12 hours away. I thought about going to the police, but what would I tell them? I thought about going to a priest. But I wasn't religious, and besides, I didn't think this was the kind of thing a priest could fix. I thought about ending it all, about finding a way out that didn't involve making more calls, but I was too much of a coward for that. At 2:17 a.m., the new assignment appeared. A name, a number, the script. You have 5 days left. I made the call. Someone answered. I said the words. I hung up. The pattern continued. Every night at 2:17 a.m., a new assignment, a new person to curse. The countdown updating each night, 6 days, 5 days, 4 days, 3, 2, 1, and then it would start over with someone new. I stopped going to work. I ignored Radu's calls and texts. I ignored the emails from HR. I stopped answering my door when my landlord knocked, asking about rent. None of it mattered anymore. The only thing that mattered was the calls. 1 week passed, 2 weeks, a month. I made the calls every night. I had to. The one time I tried to refuse, the escalation started. My apartment started to change. The walls developed cracks. Strange sounds came from inside the walls. My reflection in the mirror started to look wrong, like it was slightly out of sync with my movements. So I made the calls. I wondered sometimes about the people I was calling. I wondered if they were going through what I'd gone through. The fear, the paranoia, the desperate search for answers. I wondered if they'd also received that email, that transfer notification. I wondered how many callers there were now, how many people had been changed, pulled into this system. The list I'd seen in the call assignment system had been long. Dozens of names, maybe hundreds, and it kept growing. At some point, I decided to try to find out more. I went back to the office late one night when I knew it would be empty. I badged in, expecting my access to be revoked, but the door opened. I went to my desk and logged in. My credentials still worked. I pulled up the call assignment system again. My profile was there, updated. Status, active role, caller shift, continuous call volume, 47 calls, 47 people I'd cursed. I clicked on the list of other callers. It had grown since I'd last checked. New names had been added. Recent approval dates, I recognized one of the names, Mihai Ionescu. The first person I'd been assigned to call, his approval date was 1 week after mine. So it was true, everyone I called eventually became a caller themselves. The system was expanding, growing, feeding on itself. I searched for information about where it came from, who had created it. But there was nothing. The call assignment system had no author, no creation date, no documentation. It simply existed, buried deep in the company's internal network. I tried to delete it. I tried to corrupt the database. I tried everything I could think of to stop it. Nothing worked. I left the office as the sun was rising, feeling more hopeless than ever. Time passed in a blur. Weeks became months. I lost my apartment when I couldn't pay rent anymore. I stayed in cheap hotels, paying with the last of my savings. When that ran out, I slept in my car, but I always had my phone. And every night at 2:17 a.m., I made the call. The assignments kept coming. New names, new numbers, always the same script. I tried changing the words, tried warning people, tried telling them what was coming. But whenever I deviated from the script, the call would disconnect, and I'd get a warning. 3 warnings, and escalation would begin. I learned to just say the words and hang up. That's all I was now. A voice in the darkness, counting down someone else's final days of normalcy. One night, months after my own transformation, I got an assignment that made me stop. The name was Ioana Dumitru, my ex-girlfriend. She'd gotten married since we broke up. Dumitru was her married name. I stared at the name on the screen for a long time. I couldn't do it. Not to her, but I had to. I had no choice. At 2:17 a.m., I made the call. She answered, her voice confused and sleepy. "Hello? You have 6 days left," I whispered. There was a pause. Then, "Alexandru, is that you?" I hung up immediately. I sat in my car in the parking lot of a closed gas station and cried for the first time since all of this began. The next day, she called me. My personal number. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. "Alexandru, I know that was you. What's going on? Are you okay? Please call me back." I deleted the voicemail. A week later, I got another assignment. Her name again. The script had updated. "You have 0 days left." I made the call. She didn't answer. It went to voicemail. I said the words to a voicemail and hung up. I never heard from her again. I checked the call assignment system a week after that. Her name was on the list of callers now. Status, Active role, caller, I had done that to her. I had pulled her into this nightmare. That's when I finally understood. This wasn't a curse. This wasn't supernatural. This was something worse. This was a system, a mechanism, and it was self-perpetuating. Every person it took became another part of it, another voice making calls, spreading it further, and there was no way to stop it, no way to escape it. The only way out was to bring someone else in. I'm writing this now, months later, in case someone finds it. In case someone is going through what I went through and searching for answers. There are no answers. There's no way to stop the countdown. When you get that first call, your fate is already sealed. You have 6 days, then 5, and then 4. And when the countdown reaches 0, you become what I became. You become a caller. And you'll make the calls, just like I do. Just like hundreds of others do, every night at 2:17 a.m. The system grows. It always grows. I checked my company profile again last night. I don't know why. Maybe morbid curiosity. My employee status had changed again. Name, Alexandru Popescu. Role, caller status. Active shift, continuous call. Volume 1,847, 1,847 calls. That's how many people I've cursed. That's how many people are now part of this system, and every night the number grows. I tried to go back to the office one last time, a few days ago. I wanted to see if anyone there remembered me, if there was any record of my time as a customer service representative. I couldn't badge in. My access had finally been revoked. I looked through the window of the security door. The office looked the same. People at desks, headsets on, taking calls. I saw Radu in his office. I knocked on the glass door, trying to get his attention. He looked up, looked right at me, then looked away, like I wasn't there. I knocked again, harder. He didn't react. I gave up and walked away. I'm not sure if I exist anymore in any meaningful way. I'm not in the system as an employee. I'm not in the system as a person. I'm just a caller. A voice on the phone. A mechanism in a machine that never stops running. Tonight at 2:17 a.m., I'll make another call. I'll say the words. I'll hang up. And somewhere someone else will start their countdown. 6 days, 5 days. 4, until they become what I am. Until they join the system. This is what I've become. And this is what happens when the countdown reaches 0. You don't die. You don't disappear. You just become part of something bigger. Something that feeds on fear and spreads like a virus. And there's no cure. No way to stop it. The calls will continue. Forever. My name is Alexandru Popescu. I was a person once. Now I'm just a voice in the darkness. And if your phone rings at 2:17 a.m., if you hear a calm, flat voice on the other end telling you how much time you have left, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But you should know, you can't stop it. You can't escape it. The countdown always ends the same way, with you becoming a caller, just like me.